Question number one. Why is this problem happening for me? Now, isn't it so true that we are always asking the question, why is this problem happening to me? Which presupposes that life is in some way against us. And yet when we change one simple word, and by asking, why is this problem happening for me? It presupposes that a bad situation is or has happened for our benefit. And I love this question because it is so simple and yet has powerful, life-changing consequences. When we shift our way of thinking and start seeing that everything in life is here to help us grow, to shift, to step up to the plate and move forward to reach the next level, then life becomes this enjoyable game to play. So the question, why is this problem happening for me, will get you to flip the negative aspect of a problem into a positive. And trust me, it works. I can remember a time when I was homeless and living on the streets, and my whole life had crashed, and I was face down in the dirt of rock bottom, and things were so dire financially that I was actually living in a tent. So one morning I wake up, it's December, and I'm in a tent, in a sleeping bag, and I'm freezing my arse off. I'm like cold to the bones. So I get changed and I make my way to a local coffee shop just to get some much needed warmth for an hour or two. When I come back to where I had pitched my tent, it was gone. There was no tent. Someone had taken it, along with my clothes and belongings that were in the tent. So now I'm homeless on the streets with nothing but the clothes on my back and thankfully some cash in my pocket. And of course, given what had just happened to me, my mind was in panic, survival mode. And I'm wondering, how on earth am I going to get through this day? Where am I going to sleep at night? And I also started to think, and quite rightly so, how on earth could someone do this to me? Why are these bad things keep happening to me? Just when I thought it couldn't get any worse, it did. And why can't I just catch a break? When is this all gonna stop? Which was just making me feel worse and worse. And it was then that I remembered that some guru on a social media channel stated that whenever bad things happen, you should ask, why is this problem happening for me? So I started asking that question in relation to that severe problem of being homeless and after having my personal belongings stolen. And I do recall that I had to ask that question at least 6 times or so until it broke my pattern of self-pity. And I started to shift the way that I was thinking and feeling about my situation. And I will never forget it because I instantly burst out laughing at the absurdity of thinking that being homeless and having my possessions stolen was actually happening for me. But then the answers started coming. I started to think, well, apart from losing my health, it couldn't get any worse. And the only way is up from here. Then I really started to dig into that question and realized that the awful situation of being homeless and having my possessions stolen was teaching me that life can be hostile and that I need to have a secure roof over my head and that I need to start participating in society and contribute some type of value that will both help others and help me simultaneously get the things that we both need. That living on the streets is no way to live. And so from that point onwards, I then started to channel my focus and attention towards making the necessary self-improvements. And I started aiming for higher standards. So whenever you have a negative perspective towards a problematic situation in your life, if you just ask yourself enough times that question, why is this problem happening for me? Notice how it begins to shift your focus towards a positive solution. Right, let's now tackle question number 2. What positive consequences will come from this? So here you are looking at the problematic situation that is or has happened, and you are now projecting yourself into the future to think about what positive results or situations will transpire from this problem. So if you are, let's say, in a relational dispute, for instance, it could be that you now know how to handle yourself and address the problem in a similar future scenario. Or you may have lost a close relationship or the love of your life, and yet you have gained a newfound freedom to be, do, and go anywhere you like. It could be that you have recently been made redundant and on bad terms, and now you have the opportunity to transfer your knowledge and skills into doing something similar or different, but this time on good terms, on terms that suit you. So, what positive consequences will come from this? Question number 3. What is the positive intention behind this? I really like this question because when bad things happen to us, we almost always assume that someone or something is out to cause us harm. But the reality is, and at the most fundamental level, all of life has an underlying positive intent. That underlying positive intent is to get our needs for survival and security met, and our desires for pleasure, power, and control also met. So, for example, a mother could be shouting at her child to clean the room and making threats that the child will be punished. On the outside, this is aggressive behaviour, and the child could feel harassed and upset by this. And yet, even though the mother's approach is primal and abusive, the mother's underlying positive intention is for the room to be cleaned and for the child to learn to be responsible for taking care of his or her own stuff. Another example would be, let's say a house builder is working on a house project for a customer and just happens to keep finding additional work that keeps bumping the price of the job up and up. To a point, the customer starts to lose trust in the builder and then starts to think that they are being had over, which, in a sense, they could be right. But unbeknownst to them, the builder is in massive debt and could potentially lose his home, and thus he needs to earn a big sum of money and quick to prevent him and his wife and kids from being turfed out on the streets. And look, I'm not condoning bad behaviour here. What I'm saying here is that sometimes people do bad things over there to get a good outcome somewhere else. That behind every bad, unfair, or even evil behaviour, there is a positive intent to satisfy one's personal needs and desires. So realise now that if someone has done something bad to you, it was not necessarily with the intention to harm you personally. It could have been with the intention for them to try and satisfy their personal needs and desires. Which brings me to question number 4. What positive emotions can I attribute to this situation? This question will help us to shift the way that we feel about our problems. We want to shift from feeling down, frustrated, disappointed, angry, or anxious to feeling upbeat, at ease, enthusiastic, hopeful, and at peace. So when asking this question, whilst thinking about how the current situation is making you feel bad, I want you to ask the question as you imagine how you would prefer to feel about the situation. By doing that, by imagining how you would prefer to feel about it, you are giving yourself an ideal, a higher state of being, something better to aim for and be. You need to know what that positive state is so that you know where to transverse across to. So imagine the situation to be like you are clinging onto this rock face, feeling very unsafe, unsure, and constantly worried about the potential danger of slipping any moment. But rather than be there in that negative state, you are going to look around at other parts of the rock face to see if there is a much safer and secure ledge to transfer across where you feel much better. And by asking what positive emotions can I attribute to this situation, you are looking for a good way out. You are looking for a better way to feel so that you can transverse away from feeling bad. Question number 5. What makes this aspect of my life worthwhile my efforts? With anything problematic and negative in our life, it has the potential to become this thing that limits and prevents us, that makes us feel insecure or inferior in some way. We then start to hide from it, to shrink from it, to deny it, and yet it never goes away. It remains as this blight, as this shame, as this tainted part of conscience that we then live with. If we are not being rewarded for our efforts, or worse, if we are being punished for our efforts in life, we can also start to give up on doing certain things now and in the future. So for instance, if we are going through the ordeal of a relational dispute at home, not only can we start to withdraw from that relationship and become less intimate, affectionate and passionate, but we can also start to feel insecure and less willing to get intimate when it comes to new relationships, platonic relationships. The same ethos applies to a failed career, business, project or venture. Where once bitten, we can be twice shy. Where the situation went wrong before, we can then start to project our doubts, worries and resentments into those similar aspects of life in the future. We can start to depreciate the different aspects of life and think it's just not worth the hassle. And of course, the more that we think something is not worth the effort in fear of some kind of negative outcome, the less willing, the less inclined, the less committed, the less enthusiastic and the less adventurous, creative and fun we will be in that part of our life. So when looking at the negatives in your life and then asking, what makes this aspect of my life worthwhile my efforts, you are searching for the value and virtue that affirms why you should embrace this aspect of your life rather than negate it, despite even what has happened or is happening currently in this part of your life. Now let's move on to question number 6, which is, how does this challenge of mine elicit personal growth? With this question, we are transmuting our so-called problem into this test, this opportunity to prove and strengthen something about ourselves so that we can grow in character, emotions, physicality, intelligence, awareness, and wisdom. So I want you to look at the problem in your life and think about how it has tested you, how it has exposed a weakness, how this has made you adjust the way you approach this aspect of your life, where you have or can find a way to cope with it, to overcome it, to move forward beyond it and excel despite of it, and how that has made you grow as a person, where you realize that you have become more resilient, ready, refined, skillful and smarter because of this challenge. Question number 7, and there is so much simplicity and power in this question. Why am I grateful for this? This question has such a monumental mind shift, especially when you associate this question to a problematic situation that you don't currently appreciate, right? Because nobody appreciates a problem. Problem is always something that we must endure, dislike, get combative with, frown upon, and bitch about. Problems elicit a negative response. So with the question, why am I grateful for this? We are flipping that negative into a positive. We are seeking to find a value in the problem, to appreciate that the problem has a value. And when we are grateful for our problems, we are saying that I receive this into my life because I know that it is here to serve me. Question number 8. How do I extract a moral benefit from this? So again, when we think about our problems, we are focused on what is wrong about the problem and how perhaps we have been wronged by the person or the situation. And to be fair, things do go wrong and people do wrong things, and yet if all we do is think about how wrong everything is, whenever we encounter a problem, then we are blindsided to what's right about it. Now you might be thinking, what could possibly be right about a problem? Wrong is wrong and right is right, right? Well, not necessarily, because what is wrong for you could be right for someone else, and vice versa. What is right for you could be wrong for someone else. And that's why morals, which is to know the difference between right and wrong, is a subjective experience. Morals are personal because they come down to what we believe is right or wrong as an individual. But getting back to the topic of how do we make right a wrong, how do we extract a moral benefit from a problem, which is to say, how do we find the right in the wrong so that it becomes a principle that we can embrace. So let's imagine that you have this relational problem where you have been wronged by someone, or you have knowingly wronged someone. Rather than be focused on what they or you did wrong, you could instead transmute that wrongfulness into focusing on what would or should have been the right way to have handled that situation. And from you contemplating and affirming what should have been the right way to deal with it, you will have gained a moral benefit that you can now apply in your life going forward, where you now realize what you can do differently in future similar situations. Now for question number 9, what deeper meaning and higher purpose can I assign to this? Unfortunately, in life, when we experience some type of loss, hurt and suffering, we can often start to feel victimized, that for some reason we don't deserve to have better, or that we are getting exactly what we do deserve. We can also start to feel insignificant, separated, isolated, and alone with our problems. We can start to feel that we have nothing of value to offer, or that there's no use trying because nothing good or great will come our way. And so we see no reason to try and make things better. And sadly, that kind of thinking becomes a self self-fulfilling prophecy. We become our own victim when thinking that certain aspects of our life have no meaning or purpose. To turn that kind of stinking thinking around, we need to dig deeper and hop higher to find real meaning and purpose. It is when life has deeper meaning and higher purpose that we feel unique, useful, that we start to really care about and savor this life. Because even in the most dire and tragic circumstances, a deeper meaning and higher purpose to what we experience can be found. Our greatest gifts in life tend to come from our darkest moments. It is when we are feeling down, drastic and done, when it all seems lost and irretrievable, that the will to live and thrive can spring into action. It is when the superficial aspects of our reality comes crumbling down that we actually get to see reality for what it really is. Every obstacle, every downturn, every knock, every mistake, every wrong turn, every battle, every failure that we go through is testing and building us for something far greater down the line. But to realize that, you have to see the deeper meaning and higher purpose of your existence and experiences. Deeper meaning is when the problems that you have experienced resonate with you on this visceral, intuitive level, where you know in your heart of hearts that because that thing happened, that this something special, beneficial and helpful will come because of it, which will then become an integral part of who you are as you move forward. With higher purpose, you are looking to take a problem and see how, although it has a negative experience and perhaps it's been a low point in your life, that you can use that experience as a step up to do something greater because of it. You can take that experience and share it with people that you know, love, and work with, so that it has value to help others. So whatever problem you do have, and wherever you have a negative perspective, ask, what deeper meaning and higher purpose can I assign to this? Question number 10 is where you ask, how does this inspire and motivate me to be a better person? Because is it not true, when faced with problems, we can feel demoralized and demotivated by them, wondering, how am I ever going to deal with this and get through it? The problem is, when we are coming from a place of low, demotivated, unenthusiastic energy, there is no compelling drive or desire to do anything. And the thing that we least want to deal with, the problems in our life that seem to linger on, then become the reoccurring problems that most haunt us. Because those things that we call problems, unless they are readdressed and balanced with a solution, they never go away. Sure, they might go away when we ignore them or avoid them. They might go away when the person or situation that is presenting the problem no longer does. And yet, in the grand scheme of things, somewhere down the line, we are going to face a similar problem. And that unresolved element of who we are will attract and manifest the same problem down the line. So we need to resolve it. And what better way to do that than approach the problem with a positive attitude of how does this inspire and motivate me to be a better person? With this question, you are looking to establish how you as a person can change, can improve, can resolve, can upgrade, can be the solution to overcome the problematic situation you face. You can even ask yourself, what can I do to be the person that lives, shares, promotes, and sells the solution to that problem? Because believe me, once you get on the side of doing good things that result in good consequences, then you're going to be inspired and motivated to do more of it. Which brings us to question 11. How do I grow in strength and resilience from this? Here I want you to think about how your problem has made you grow as a person, as a parent perhaps, as a human or as a sibling. How has it made you grow stronger mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, socially, relationally, financially? And why are you more resilient because of it? In what ways have you become more flexible, adaptable, open-minded, and aware? Where and how have you been able to spring back from your problems more determined and spirited than ever? That's how I want you to approach this question. How do I grow in strength and resilience from this? Now for question number 12. What valuable lesson can I learn from this? What we all need to realize in this life, that there are no problems, no mistakes, no failures, no wrong turns. There are only experiences and consequences of which we get to learn a life lesson. The lesson that we gain from every experience and consequence is either a new way, a new wisdom, or a new warning. Which is to say that we've discovered how not to do something, whilst at the same time discovering how to do the same something but better instead this time round. From the problem, we have discovered what to avoid in the future and what to aim for instead. The lesson then becomes the adjustment, the recalibration, the repurposing of our actions. We gain foresight and good judgment from learning from our problems. So ask, what valuable lesson can I learn from this? Get multiple answers to that question and you will be empowered with many new ways, wisdoms and warnings from that one problem that will guide you into a better future. Which leads us on to the 13th question, a question that is relevant to the last question. How can this lesson bolster my self-worth? Here I want you to think about how the lessons that you've gained from the previous question can be internalized as part of your true nature. And by that, I mean that the lessons learned from your experiences have become these psycho assets, this knowledge base, these truisms and principles that you now live by, that make you feel secure, knowing and trusting of yourself, that no matter what happens out there, whatever storms blow your way, that you will always feel worthy of who you are, where you are, and in what you are doing, because you now have this newfound wisdom and skill. So when answering this question, think about where you have gained a superior quality, how you have gained self-respect from this part of your life. Question number 14, what is the wisdom you have gained from this that will help you to make better choices in the future? This question relates to the lessons that you've learned from the problem that you are currently dealing with. That's because a lesson learned is a wisdom gained. Wisdom means that you are wise over your dominion. From the consequences of the problem, you have gained the discernment, the sensibility, the awareness, the logic, the rationale, the foresight to know the difference between making a good or bad choice in the future. So, what is the wisdom gained, and in what future situation will it help you to make a better choice? And why is that better choice going to improve the quality of your life? Once you've answered that, move on to question 15, and that is, how does this problem convert into a lifetime solution? With all the questions that you've answered so far in relation to that one problem that you identified back in step 1, you should now be able to connect the dots to clarify what the solution is to that problem. Is the solution to avoid something? Is it to innovate something? Is it to inform someone? Is it to create something new? Is it to begin afresh? Is it to know when and when not to do something? What is the lifetime solution to that problem? And by lifetime, I mean it's a solution that can be reapplied in your life again and again throughout time and with positive results. Now for question number 16, which will take a little more consideration. And that question is, how have I benefited from this problem in a way that empowers everyone involved? So with this question, I want you to think about how the positive solution that you've gained from this problem can now be utilized as a value, as an aid and asset. And also, how does this positive effect make you a better person? And how does that betterment give you a skill, this insight, this strategy, this method that can become a value that will help and assist others deal with the same problem? Question number 17, how can I contribute to this problem in a way that creates a winning situation for all concerned? Now, the beauty of this question is that it's getting you to explore how a problem between you and another party involved can be switched into a solution that brings you together. Which means from everything that you've learned from answering the previous 16 questions, you now know the way, the olive branch, the initiative, the resolution to resolve a situation where everyone wins, where everyone gets what they want and are happy and better off because of it. And of course, if you are going to approach a problematic situation in your life with the intention to make it good, you need to approach it in a certain way that will garner the best response. So for question number 18, you would ask, how do I approach this situation in a way that I can maintain honour and show respect for everyone involved? Let's break that question down and begin with the words maintain honour. What does maintain honour actually mean? Well, if you are to address a situation in your life, you need to be respected in how you approach it and in what you say. Because if people don't respect what you say, then they won't listen to you. So for example, if you are talking down to people, being argumentative, antagonistic, defensive, righteous, or resolute with how you approach people and situations, then one of two things will happen. A, you will provoke a reaction, or B, you will provoke an aversion, which is to say that people will be repelled by you or determined to counteract you, which leads to nothing more than conflict, where you have two polarized states clashing, which is not equilibrium, which is not meeting life on equal terms. Now let's look at the words show respect. What does show respect mean? Well, with show respect, you are going to recognize and appreciate that within every situation and person that you encounter, there's somewhere and somehow they have a value, they have a point, they have a view, they have a need, they have a right, they have a good intention, they have a desire, they have a purpose, they have some information, They have some standing, they have some authority or some experience that deserves its place, that deserves to be shown respect, that deserves to be listened to, that deserves consideration. Therefore, when you maintain honour and show respect, you are the one that creates a space where two people can come together on equal terms, even if there are parts of the person or the situation that you dislike and disagree with. And the reason this is so important to meet on equal terms is because it keeps the dialogue open and flowing. It keeps the discussion amicable and progressive. It keeps your sense of self in relation to the situation or person as being dignified and admirable. So address your problems with the question, how do I approach this situation in a way that I can maintain honour and show respect for everyone involved? Now for the final question, last but not least. Question number 18, which is, how do I respond to this in a way that comes from a place of love, compassion, and understanding? So before I address what this question means, let's look at the question's nemesis, which is an inversion of that question. The inversion of that question would be, how do I respond to this in a way of hate, indifference, and ignorance? Now think about that inversion, because when confronted with problematic situations in our life that are shrouded in a negative outcome that can make us feel bad about ourselves and life, the tendency is to loathe what happened and feel disgusted and perhaps bitter towards it, and then give that problem the cold shoulder to prevent ourselves from getting hurt again, and then ignore it, hoping that it will just go away. As you now know from working the Mind Games program, that the things that we don't deal with and process in life remain repressed inside as unresolved wounds that will open up again when a similar situation arises in the future that makes us feel insecure, fearful, ashamed, or traumatized even. Therefore, to flip that, to equalize it, we would use the question, how do I respond to this in a way that comes from a place of love, compassion, and understanding? So let's break that question down and begin with the word love. With the word love, I don't mean that you are going to start loving something or loving something about someone that you dislike. I mean that you are going to set aside any ill feelings that you have and associate goodwill, sympathy, and forgiveness towards the other. That you recognize that we are all fallible humans that live in an imperfect world where mistakes and bad things do happen. With compassion, you are being empathetic, considerate, lenient, tolerant, and holding a space for the other to express themselves. With understanding, you are looking at how you can be more aware and knowing of a person or situation, that you are seeking to find more information so that you can better assess the experience before you make a decision. So rather than be burning bridges, you can start bridging gaps between you and your problems. You can flip the negative into positivity by asking, how do I respond to this in a way that comes from a place of love, compassion, and understanding?